Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the TT Time with Dr. Tarver is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. Welcome to the second week of June. I know it's Tuesday. I was on time this week. Go me. So, we have been in this series on men's mental wellness. It is Men's Wellness Month, and so I'm focusing particularly on the mental wellness of men. Last week, we talked about finding healing spaces for the brethren, even when people don't give you a space to be able to heal. And in honor of Father's Day this weekend, of course, I am going to talk about fatherhood today and some of the healthy aspects of being a father. I know that as a parent, it is a difficult challenge to think about this young human that you're raising into adulthood and wanting them to be able to have certain characteristics. If we're honest with ourselves, we want our children to grow up and be good human beings. But also, I think most of us want our children to somewhat be a reflection of us and the values we've instilled in them. We want to be proud of them. We want to see them grow and succeed. And so, men have, I think, a unique challenge in being fathers because there are so many stereotypes that I think come along, particularly with black fathers. And this constant feeling as if you're being evaluated and criticized, and that you have to show up with these extra things to be able to prove that there are good black dads out there. So I see you, and this episode is for you. So, you all know we've got a lot of examples of negativity about who dads are. You may remember uh, plenty of entertainers who have talked about how they have given chastity belts to their daughters, or they performed checks to ensure they were still virgins, or they exposed their young male children to sex as a celebration of them moving into adulthood, even if they weren't quite adults. That you allow them to drink and smoke with you because you don't want them to be doing it in unsafe spaces, even if they're underage and the effects on them could potentially be dangerous. We have plenty of examples of fathers who don't show up, who are absent, who are abusive. Joe Jackson. And the Jacksons and their experience with feeling as if they were unloved and were only to be utilized for what they could offer. And as I think about historically, even the portrayals of black dads on TV have consisted of very negative experiences. It wasn't, I think, until um, probably around the time I was born, Good Times aired and acknowledged the presence of a black man as the head of the household in the home, who was a caring and loving spouse, who ensured a combination of structure for his children and supporting and loving on them and nurturing their talents, and also being able to love on his wife and be affectionate of her. It also depicted his struggles with inequality, and trying to maintain employment and get paid his just due. Also addressed him being advocate in politics, and being a man who believed in God. So I think so. Where does this come from? I'll do a little bit of history, like these negative perceptions of black men as fathers. Oftentimes, there is this perception that the black male is dangerous and he's aggressive, and he is a threat. He is depicted as being involved in gang activity or being incarcerated or being absent. He is often portrayed in very derogative sexual ways, to have an insatiable appetite, and also to have these characteristics of being a lover that other ethnic groups don't have. He is considered to be very athletic and very powerful in terms of being a runner or in terms of his strength, but not in terms of his intellect and his capacity for empathy, caring, and understanding. It is this myth that black men don't bathe their children, don't change diapers, don't dress their kids, don't read to their kids, don't share meals with their children, are not actively involved in their lives from their birth until their adulthood. That black men are fathering a bunch of children outside of wedlock, multiple children outside of the home, that black men are lazy, and that they're irresponsible. And I think that when we look at the criminal justice system, we also recognize that African American males are much more likely to be incarcerated, and their sentences are much more likely to be harsh as compared to their peers. And then they often have difficulty being able to successfully re enter into society after periods of incarceration. Um, we often talk about the black men being absent in terms of paying child support, and that they are um, ducking and dodging, working jobs under the table so that they don't have to pay for their children, that they do not want to have custody of their children, and uh, are giving, signing over their rights to their children. And also, I think that there is this image of black men just being ill, being mentally ill, being physically ill, like not taking care of themselves, and also not wanting better for themselves. And so I think it is important. We talked last week about safe spaces and allowing yourself to heal. And sometimes there is a legacy, right? So we know that whereas it is a stereotype and often not an accurate reflection of the over 1 million men that are in the homes with their children, black men who are in the homes with their children, but that it is based on an exaggeration of the data, so that we'll take something and we'll generalize it and we'll say it's truth when it is correlational, and it is not something that is inherent in us to be broken and not to be present within our families. But also that black men can not only successfully lead households, but also can invest in and teach their children skills. And so some of this was born out of the opportunity to keep black men from advancing, to minimize their threat, to identify them as predators, to justify harsh sentences and criminality toward them and inhumane treatment and inequity toward them, but also to be able to immobilize, I think, sometimes the black family, and to cause tension and chaos within the black family, and to at some points discontinue, you know, African Americans' ability to be productive and grow and invest in society, right? So if you break up the home, you start with the black father, you remove him, then you break the family system down, and so then you're much more likely to keep control and power. So it's a tactic that has been utilized to turn black people against each other, to turn families against black men, to continue this school to prison pipeline. So a lot of different reasons for the maintenance of it, often rooted in racism, and historically meant to keep oppression and suppression. So now that we've kind of gotten that out of the way, it is essential, I think, to address that whatever might have been perceptions of black men, that is not your story. That's not your worth. That's not your value. That's not your identity. And even if you have made some mistakes in this journey. They are a part of you, but they don't define you. And so you have the capacity to show up and being an amazing father. And again, over a million of you are showing up and being present and being amazing dads in your family. And those are some old statistics, I think, from CDC. So I'm sure those rates are much higher today. But let's talk about what are some of the characteristics of a good father. And I will tell you that there are no exact pathways, no template that is guaranteed. There are a lot of factors that go into men being good dads, but I will tell you that as long as you're showing up and giving your best, you already have half the battle won. So, being present and involved, I think that there comes a time in our kids' development where they start changing, and sometimes can be quite challenging, rebellious, and probably reflections of who we were as children coming back to haunt us. But no matter how your children change and grow, it's important that you connect with them, you listen to them, you have good work-life balance, and boundaries in ensuring that you're carving out the time for them. They see it, they recognize that's what you're doing. I know we can get so caught up in all of the things in life, and you may be the breadwinner in the family, the person who is bringing in the most money and responsible for a lot of things. And sometimes when you get that little bit of downtime, you want to just be able to unplug, make some space for your kids. You'll be surprised at how much of a difference a good solid hour can make of just no technology time. It's us doing something that they enjoy. And one of my good friends who is a mental health provider, she says, now I won't be with you for a long time, but it'll be a good time while I'm here. And so recognizing that quality is always going to be more important, even if you can't get that quantity. We talked about some of you are working a lot of hours, or you may be in positions where you're serving your country or away from the home. But if you get that good time in, they'll have those stories and they'll remember. But also tell them where you are and what you're doing in your investment, video time. So there's a lot of different ways that you can be present with them, because you might miss some things, and kids can get resentful when you're not present. So let me show up for you in the ways that I can, that can go a long way later in life. Being able to apologize. I think some of the struggles with all of us as adults is that um, we often forget how important it is to let our kids see us taking responsibility and accountability for our behavior. And I understand that it may not have been your intention. However, dad's intent doesn't negate impact. We're all going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes as a father. And sometimes we try to pretend like we didn't make a mistake, or we're trying to spin it on our kids and make them responsible for it somehow. And sometimes we can just take stuff out on them. That we have a bad day, we have stress, we're going through things and we're short with them, we're terse with them, or maybe they're part of our stress. And so we're really irritated with them. They keep on making them the same mistakes. And it taps into the part of us that makes us feel like we've let them down, like we haven't done something right. And so the egos can kind of get in there. So it's important for you as a dad to recognize that there is power in an apology, and being able to phrase an apology so it's not like, I'm sorry that hurt your feelings. I mean, you're probably a little sensitive, but whatever. That's not an apology, right? So making sure that it's sincere and it's authentic and it's real and you hear them, that matters. Family time is so very important, because not only is it important for you to individually spend time with your kids, because all children want to feel like they're valued and important, and there's nothing like a dad's love. Um, and a present father means so much to children. But it is also important that your kids see you investing in the family, so that you're spending time. They see loving relationships, that they see how to have balance as a family, that you carve out that family time, that you do that family game night, you have those family conversations, you take the time to address things, that they see you problem solving, that they see you working things out in the family, that you teach them skills. You can make that family time financial investment time, teaching them how to start investing, teaching them about owning a business, teaching them about taxes, teaching them about savings, and how to be able to financially support themselves. You're pouring into them and teaching them life skills while you're spending time with them as a family. And it needs to be some fun time too, so not all lessons, but it's a great way to be able for them to see the investment, not only in them as children, but in the family as a whole. I know, I know, dads, you are not going to always be interested in what your children are doing. Your daughter is going to want to paint your nails and give you barrettes. And if you're bald, she's still going to want to brush your hair and put lipstick on you. And they may not be something that you're comfortable with. But it is important for us to take an active interest in what our children are excited about at the various stages of their development. So there is compromise in that. That you can play with her dolls. That when your son only likes video games and you don't, and you think they're a waste of time, that you take some time and you play those video games. You don't like anime, you don't even understand this. What are you looking at? Who are these people? Why do they all look alike and have these big eyes? But when you invest in them and the music that they like and the activities that they like, it allows them to realize their worth and their value. And I know you're thinking, how can me doing things that they enjoy give them a sense of worth and value? Because it lets them know that they're enough and they're lovable and that people can be interested in them and they're not weird and odd. And they might be a little weird and odd, and that's okay. But that you celebrate those aspects of them, that you take some time to understand who they are, that you get into their worlds. Oftentimes, children will say, my parents don't know me, my daddy doesn't know me, he's still treating me as if I, am in whatever stage. So as you spend time with them, you'll get to see when their interests change, and you'll get the chance to be a part of their lives as they grow and develop, which speaks to the importance of allowing them to be able to develop their own interests. I know that we all have in our minds who we want our children to be. And so you may be thinking in your mind, like, my daughter's going to be an attorney, my son is going to be an engineer. And that may not necessarily be the path they take. So allow them to develop their interests, whatever those may be. Some of them are going to be things that you're like, hey, that's pretty cool. And others you're going to be like, that's different. And I'm not sure what you're going to do with that. But do understand that our kids growing and exploring is a part of them learning. To be able to experience failures, to be able to experience disappointments, to realize that they're not going to always be like everyone else, and that it's important for them to be able to walk on their own because sometimes they need to. I do think it's also important for us as parents not to have a different set of rules for our kids than we do for ourselves. Dads, they're watching you. They're looking at you as the guidance and the example. So if you say to them, do as I say and not as I do, then you're setting yourself up to not have a trusting relationship with your kids, because really I need to model for you my expectations for you. So if I expect you to clean, you need to see me cleaning. If I expect you to honor your commitments, you need to see me honoring my commitments. When you say something, that's your word, you honor your word. It's important for you to allow them to see not only what their expectations are, but that it is possible for them to be able to live up to the expectations. Oftentimes, children will say to their dads, like, I never felt like I was enough for you, that I could live up to your expectation, that I could be what you wanted me to be. And truth be told, sometimes we do have unrealistic expectations of them. However, as we get to know them and we spend time with them and we're modeling for them, we'll get a chance to see who it is they are growing to be and allow them the space to be able to do that. I know that a lot of you grew up and you're like, don't ask me all those questions. Um, it is what I said it is. So you do what I told you to do. But sometimes it is important for our children to understand. And you as dads, there are a lot of things that you experience and that you see that give your children a different perspective. your experience as a man, your experience navigating socially, your experience in the work environment, your experience with police officers, your experience with educators. It's important for them to be able to know why you have the values that you have, why you are teaching them in the way that you're teaching them. And even if they don't fully understand it or invest in it, then it doesn't mean that they won't later. I always say plant those seeds. It's important for our kids to understand why you are disciplining them, why you're removing a privilege from them, why they can't watch certain things, why you won't allow them to hang around certain people, why you won't let them allow them to date certain people, why you won't allow them to go to certain people's houses. And even though they're still going to be upset about it after you tell them, it's important for them to know that the logic behind your decision is grounded and rooted, get your words together, girl, in wanting them to be safe, teaching them to be kind, teaching them to be responsible, teaching them to problem solve, teaching them to navigate difficult things. I think it's also important for us to allow you men to have space, but that also you take this space when you need it. I know that there's a lot to balance and navigate, and there are a lot of demands on you as a dad, as a husband, as a provider, as a nurturer, as all of the things that you may be serving in. But you taking that time for you is going to allow you to be able to reset. And that's an important part of your development. Whatever the boundaries are you're going to instill in your children, dads, make sure they're clear. It's important for us to set the rules, talk about the consequences for violating the rules, but also that there is consistency in the execution of the rules. They need to see you have good boundaries. You're not their friend, as you well know. We've all said it to our children at some point. I am not one of your friends. So address me as such. You're teaching them that there are differences in relationships and differences in the level of engagement. You ought to be able to have a conversation with an adult and look at them in their eyes and not have to text them or send them an email. You ought to be able to use the phone. You ought to be able to order for yourself. You ought to be able to express what your needs are and be able to articulate yourself and make good points, right? So these things are all components of you raising good, healthy children. And it speaks to the expectations. You're going to protect your children. That's innate within you, to make sure that your children are taken care of. But that is beyond physical. It's important for them to be protected in a variety of ways. And that protection is to arm them with knowledge and understanding and skills so they can be able to navigate. You're teaching them how to be adults. Even as they're matriculating through childhood, these skills are building on each other. Loving your kids doesn't mean you have to love everything they do, nor does it mean that you have to allow them to do everything that they want to do. I know that it is often a tendency for dads to be a little harder on their male children, a little softer on their girls. But it's important that you tell her no sometimes, because it is the setting up of the expectations of people, that you're going to be told no, that you're going to have to deal with disappointments in your life, that you won't be able to get everything that you want, that other people will not always be excited about the things that you're excited about, right? And so, because you're the safe space, when they experience these things with you, they can process it and understanding, and it doesn't hit them as hard when they experience that with their peers later on in life. I think it's important for our children to know that there are consequences to poor decision making. And as a dad, you're going to have a lot more experience with what those potential consequences could be, because there are things that you're going to see as a man that their mom won't see, and that they won't see as children. And so that is important for them to know that when you make a choice that gives you short term gratification, there is going to be a consequence for that. And that consequence might be longer term and not shorter term. I do think that as dads, it's important because you can do some sermons on the mountains now. Let the children go, Pharaoh. Don't hold them captive. Everybody doesn't have to suffer for a teachable moment. And sometimes I think that when your kids will do things to you and you will be embarrassed by them and you will not believe it and you'll want to handle it right then. But I think it's important for you to be able to discern when is a I'm going to tell you that what you did was not acceptable. We're going to deal with it when we get home, right? And I know that some of you may be coaching your kids or supporting them in activities, and you might want to rush on out when you see some behaviors that you don't like, but it's important for you to also take some pause too. I think it's also really important for you to tell your children you love them. Um, Children need to hear from their dads that they're loved, and that is boys and girls. And I know sometimes we have different standards as men for boys versus girls, but your boys need to hear that you love them too. And I would argue your boys need to hear as much, if not more, than your girls, because you are the first example of a healthy relationship with a man that they will have. And so, as they learn to navigate coaches and instructors and professors and supervisors and launch their own businesses and interact with people, that foundation of skills, you loving them, you supporting them, you grounding them, is going to allow them to be able to navigate and have healthy social skills. It is also going to allow them to be able to understand what unconditional love looks like, so that as they're navigating peer relationships and romantic relationships, that they'll know the difference between conditional love and unconditional love. If you are not any longer with your co-parent, it is important as a man that there is dignity in the interactions, that no matter what you have going on with this person, that your children I see you being able to be respectful and navigating that co-parent relationship healthy and effectively. Children often feel caught in the middle. Sometimes they feel responsible when their parents aren't still together. And a lot of times they're looking to dad for that guidance on how to navigate a challenging relationship. And so they may need a little bit more from you, particularly after a divorce or a separation. Sometimes children feel as if they have to protect one parent versus the other, which is why sometimes dads may take the hit because children may think their mom needs more than dad. Oh, dad'll be okay, but I need to look out for mom. And being able to really talk to them about grief and loss and navigating hurt and pain, and they see that emotional expression from you, and being able to talk through it's absolutely difficult, and we're going to get through it. And in ensuring, and here's your plug for therapy, ensuring that you create spaces for your children to recognize their mental wellness is important, that they see you working on your mental wellness, whether that's therapy or a combination of therapy and mindfulness and reading scriptures and your spiritual uh, connections and your faith leaders and your wellness-based books, so that they know that they can be open, they can be vulnerable, and that you're not going to see them as less than when they are, that it's not a weakness. Again, you create those healing spaces you want as a man in your children when they're little. It is also important for you to be mindful of your language with your kids. And I know sometimes you are going to be compelled to, like, hey, I need to expose you to some things because, again, I don't want you hearing things and not be familiar with them, and people take advantage of you, or you don't know what you're getting into. But be mindful that our children are not mini adults, and so there's layers of things we want to expose them to. Their brains are still developing, and what we expose them to at young ages, and that includes our language, what we're watching in terms of um, you know movies or games, videos, what they're listening to on the radio, like that shapes them and it alters them. And what I tell people is your kids can't unsee and unhear and unexperience things. And so be mindful of allowing them to be children, and that they're the things that they're seeing are things that are appropriate for children. They get so much from other people. So you really want to make sure that what they're getting from you is healthy and is whole and is well. Um, I think it's important for us to have a balance. You are going to sometimes want to smother helicopter, run in and bulldoze folks out of the way to ensure that they're taken care of, particularly if you see them as vulnerable. We have some children who might have developmental disabilities or health issues, who may be anxious or depressed, and you're going to want to protect them as their dad. But again, sometimes we have to let our kids fail, and sometimes we have to let them fall. And so allowing them uh, to experience those things is what's going to teach them to be able to manage and navigate things on their own. They won't always have you there, so we want to impart in them the skills that they'll need. You are going to be the one that sets the rules, right? Like you're going to be the one that tells them it's too much technology time. You're going to be the one that looks at their phones. You're going to be the one that goes through their rooms. And I know a lot of times dads are like, ugh, I don't want to do that. Your children, their brains are still growing and developing, and they are definitely not in a space to make good decisions. And so, whereas you want to give them some opportunities to be able to experience things, you want to constantly be monitoring and evaluating and setting time limits on what they're doing. And as you're spending time with them and engaging with them and teaching them critical thinking and about history and how to navigate the world around them, it is important for you to also be managing what is coming in that might be in opposition to what you're trying to teach them. And that doesn't mean that we, say, oh, I'm going to exclude you from being able to interact with the diverse people in the world, but I do want to make sure that you are getting your understanding, your wisdom, and your knowledge from me, and that you're not necessarily going to the all accessible internet, picking up random things, and not knowing how to filter out with your child brain what exactly you are witnessing. Give your kids a good, strong spiritual foundation. It is important for you as a dad to lead them in understanding whatever your belief system is. And so that is not only their connection to values, but it is also going to be a part of their coping when they go through difficult times, that they have that to fall back on, and that they know that no matter what, your legacy is going to be there for them to be able to utilize. So, in the event that you're not always with them, they still always have some dad lessons. I will tell you that some of the greatest memories of my dad are when he just allowed me to cry and to be vulnerable and to hurt and like struggle through it and figure it out and know that he was going to be right there in the event that I needed some of that safety. And those are things you never forget. No matter how old you get, you are never too old to need your dad. So happy Father's Day, brethren, to those of you that may be uncles, to those of you who may be men filling in the gaps because you see a child needs some mentorship, whether they're younger or they're older. So we thank you for all that you do to ensure the wellness of the people around you. And I hope that you get a celebration and are able to enjoy your time in whatever way allows you to be well.